Hi, Gareth. Good to see you. Can I ask you first about Dominic Calvert-Lewin? It's a huge moment for him. Apart from the obvious, the number of goals he scored this season, why have you included him?
Yeah, I think with pretty much all of the squad, we've not just looked at what they've done this season, but also quite a big emphasis on the end of last season as well. Dominic's a player that we've liked his all-round game for a long time. What he's added over the last 18 months are goals. And of course, for a striker, that's critical. So he's in a really rich vein of form. His all-round game in terms of what he gives to the team, his hold-up play, his ability to press the opposition, he's a pest to play against for defenders. That adds a lot to the team, and he's clearly been a big part of why Everton have started the season so well. So thoroughly deserves his opportunity.
Whenever a striker gets called up, they have a pretty formidable obstacle in their way in Harry Kane ahead of them in the pecking order. But you've got 3 games this time, as you alluded to. 9 forward players you've named. What chance does Calvert-Lewin have of getting some game time? Has he got more chance in this squad because of the number of games?
Yeah, I mean, we would be looking at pretty much all of the squad getting game time. Ideally, we want to see players. We want to learn things from the matches. It's difficult at the moment in terms of balancing all of those objectives. You have to win football matches, but also at the moment there's so much more that you're learning about the players. You're learning about resilience. You're learning about adaptability. We will learn about more new players. We had 6 debuts last time round, either full debuts or first starts. And this will be no different. I'm not sure at any club or any national team you can't develop as a team without working with the players. We can build a bit now on what we did in September, and we'll learn some tactical things. We'll learn about individuals. We'll learn the players that are going to dig in when they need to adapt. We'll learn about players that might bail out when it's not going so well. We'll learn in particular with a big squad like this who carries out the support role that's needed at a tournament, and who might be the types of characters that can do that. So it's invaluable for us, but some of the things we'll learn will be different to the norm, I think.
Can you say at this stage that none of those players in your squad will play all 3 games? It's something that Jose Mourinho has been talking about. Roberto Martinez says none of the Belgian players will.
Jose was great, wasn't he? He was on good form. I heard him. He won't phone, but he's going to stand at the top of Tottenham's stadium and tell us. So that was good. I was a bit disappointed I'm not one of his friends. I know Steve is, but in fairness, Steve helped him to a league title, so that's understandable.
That's your assistant, Steve Holland, yeah?
Yeah. No, I think that we certainly are not looking to start players in 3 games. I can't guarantee that no player will play no minute of all 3 games. You might end up having to put somebody on for 5 minutes, and then people will be saying, well, you didn't do what you said. But our aim is to manage the squad. We've got to be responsible. We're conscious of the welfare of the players. The season as a whole is a huge challenge for clubs and national teams. So we've all got to work together on that. It doesn't help anybody if we're not joined up on our thinking. And all Jose needs to do is make sure that in April and May, then he's got to look after Harry Kane for us, because there'll be 55 million people relying on that. So that obviously works both ways.
Good man. Can I ask you about Phil Foden and Mason Greenwood? I mean, we talked so much about them in the last camp for obvious reasons. You've left them both out of this one. Have you spoken to them? What's your thinking? They're clearly part of England's future, but you've had a balance to strike here, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, they're 2 very talented players. I think with what happened, there are 2 parts. One is we have to send a message to all the players in our teams at every age level that sort of thing isn't how we do things with England. But then we've also got to rehabilitate these two boys. Young people will make mistakes, and I do a lot of work with the Prince's Trust. They're brilliant at helping youngsters to get back on their feet when things haven't gone right. And these lads have suffered now enough. We didn't think it was right. I think they need this period of reflection. But then that gives them the opportunity to get back on their feet with their clubs, enjoy their football again. They're both starting to play well again, which is important. Then I can speak to them after this camp, and then it will just be about their form then as to where they're selected next time round.
Last one from me, and I'll lump them together. Bukayo Saka and Harvey Barnes both get their first call-ups. Came as a bit of a surprise to us and to a lot of people, I think. But let's talk about Saka first. He told Sky Sports News 2 months ago that it would be a difficult decision to choose between England and Nigeria. Of course, he's played all his junior football for England. So if you had to convince him that his future lies with England, and then Harvey Barnes, how's he impressed you? What's he done to deserve his call-up?
Yeah, I've not talked specifically to Bukayo about that. I think so many of our players are eligible for dual nationalities, sometimes more than 2 countries. But we've been impressed with his progress through our system. He's I thought at times last year for Arsenal really exciting, still very young, still learning, of course, but improving all the time, real high potential, real good quality. Everybody that's worked with him tells me a really level-headed, intelligent boy. So it's an area of the pitch we're keen to look at a different sort of profile of player, and he can play a number of different roles very comfortably. Harvey has had a good couple of years, really. I mean, he scored a lot of goals on loan at West Brom. He's now starting to take that into the Premier League. He's a different sort of attacking wide player, very direct, very impressive counter-attacking against Man City the other day, but that's been a consistency for a period of time. So, yeah, for sure, some of these boys we might not have been looking at if we'd had two fixtures, but this is a bit different, and it's a chance for them to work with us, and it's a chance for us to get to know them a bit better.
Thanks, Rob, for now. Next, we'll head on to a question from Carrie Brown from BeanymanSports.
Hello, Gareth. How are you?
Good, Carrie. Thank you.
I wonder if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has got your number now, if you've spoken ahead of this selection, and if you can answer his criticism that you put Mason Greenwood up in front of the cameras when they protected him, if you believe that led to anything that happened with your camp.
I have spoken to Ollie. I felt that was important because, the best way for us to communicate is always directly. So we had a really good chat last week. I think that we're actually on a similar page on a lot of things. The idea of looking after young players is very important, how we develop them. I think the only thing that there was probably a misunderstanding was that we did have contact from the club regarding all of their players. They were still in Europe. They wanted to know whether there would be dispensation for the clubs that were still in Europe. That was understandable because it was a very difficult situation for Manchester City, Manchester United, Wolves, Chelsea. But because we had 4 clubs in that situation, and then the knock-on of what that would mean for the other clubs, we just couldn't help that. So we didn't get an individual request regarding Mason. But as I said, we've talked it through. We're very much on the same page. We want to look after the young players. That's absolutely, I think we've done that well over a period of time. We've given them opportunities, but I hope we've looked after people, and we'll continue to do that.
Jadon Sancho has respiratory problems at the moment, we believe. Do you know if he's going to be fit to play? He's in his squad. And also, we are coming to the end of a transfer window. We know St George's Park quite often does the medical for players for other clubs. But if a player does need a medical, will you be able to keep them in your bubble, considering you're using St George's Park for maybe a fitness test or inquiries? Or do you think you might release them and let them sort that out?
Well, in the first instance, there will be a couple of players who might be carrying things, and there's obviously a lot more games still to be played tonight and across the weekend. So hard to tell exactly who will get through the door on Monday. In terms of the medicals, we've always tried to facilitate that internally. We've got the capability of doing that. We meet on Monday, so there's only a few hours that might affect our camps, but there are obviously a couple of situations, if I'm to believe what I read, that could happen. But we haven't had any indication of that. We'll try to help where we can, as we always do.
Thank you, Carrie. Next, we'll go to Natalie Perks of BBC Sport.
Hi, Gareth. Nice to see you.
Hi, Natalie.
You said before, after the last games, you were reluctant to be too critical of Greenwood and Foden just because you knew the reaction that was coming their way. I guess you meant media reaction. How difficult a decision then was it for you to leave them out this time when you knew that it would probably reignite it all again?
Well, whatever decision we would have taken, this would have been the story tomorrow. So you have to take what you believe to be the right decision. And I've already explained my reasons behind that.
And just a quick follow-up. How much attention do you pay to the Premier League managers when they're saying things like they won't call you, but they're expecting you to do the right thing, as Jose has?
Well, of course, the life of an England manager is very complicated in terms of we have huge clubs, we have huge personalities, we have very successful managers who've achieved a lot in the game. Every club deserves our respect, at whatever position they are in the league. Of course, the workload for the clubs at the top is higher, but players that are playing further down the league are no less important to their own clubs. So we've got to respect them all, and we've got to try to not help, but work together, work collaboratively where we can, and where we can help clubs, we always try to do that. But equally, we've got to win games of football. We've got 3 matches we want to win. We've got to develop as a team. So it is a complex situation. The pressure comes in different ways, in different guises, but it's constantly there. We know it, but we have to adapt and deal with it.
Thanks, Nat. Next, we'll go to James Ali from ESPN.
Hi, Gareth. You were speaking with a bit of a smile there earlier, but is the direct level of communication with Jose at the moment not ideal for you?
Well, I mean, with Jose, I've had, I think, a pretty good relationship for a while. He obviously allowed us to have Steve when I was taking the under-21s, and was very helpful in facilitating that. I've got to say, Jose has never, ever put me under pressure not to pick a player. That is 100% the case. He's always accepted. He's worked at big clubs throughout his life. He's always accepted that international football is part of that situation where his players are going to go. So he would expect us to look after those players as we should do with every player that we have. And the physical loading in training and the way that we manage the matches is key. But he's never, ever, I have to say, never once asked me not to select a player. And, he's been very respectful in that way.
You've done such a good job of getting people sort of reconnected, reinvested with England again. But are you finding that you're having to negotiate a little bit more with managers than you have done in the past, just because of the nature of the season at the moment, with the short pre-season and these 3 matches coming so early in the campaign?
I think everybody is respectful of each other's difficulties, really. I was on a call yesterday with coaches from lots of other sports, and it's a reminder that everybody's having the same problems. You're making plans, you're having to contingency plan, and the likelihood is that the contingency plan will have to be ripped up because the world is changing so quickly, and trying to achieve high performance in the environment that we're in with no crowds and restrictions on how you work is very, very difficult. So I think there's a respect between all coaches that we all know how hard it is. If I look at the clubs they're being judged now as if they had a normal pre-season, as if they had their players in for 4 weeks and were able to work with them in the lead into the season, as if they'd had a proper break, as if they didn't have 5 matches in the last 15 days. Very difficult for everybody. And of course, internationally, we pick up the sort of thread of all of the club issues, and then we've got our own factors of not having worked for 10 months. So that's the landscape. We've got to accept that. We've got to see that as a really good challenge. How do we make the most of that? And I think everybody does have that level of respect for each other.
Thanks, James. Next, we'll go to Jonathan Veal from Press Association.
Hi there, Gareth. Why is back in the squad? Was that an easy decision to make, and what do you make of his performances at the start of the season?
Well, I think I said last month that there was absolutely no reason we couldn't pick Harry this time. He's been, our most reliable defender over the last couple of years, so was not even a consideration in terms of whether he would be in the squad or not.
Thanks, Jonathan. We'll go to Rob Harris next.
Hi, Gareth. Hope all is well. You played Kyle Walker, who was a bit concerned he might not get into the squad. What was the decision making? Did you have a chat to him?
No, he was in the last squad. I was pleased with the application of the players that I've reselected for this camp. He knew that he made a poor decision on the challenge for the second yellow card, but his approach through the camp was good, and he's in that group of our defenders that deserve to be in the squad. So I didn't need to pick anything up. We'd talked it all through while we were still in Denmark, really.
And obviously the fact there are 3 games, which is really unusual. And are you doing anything different with the players in terms of helping to relax, in terms of, obviously they're all together so long and it's really hard for them to get outside of the bubble in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a real challenge for all sports teams, especially national teams. I was talking to Chris Silverwood from England Cricket, who had weeks in the bubble. I was talking with Eddie Jones, who's going to have sort of 2-week periods in the bubble. We're used to having long periods away with the team, but it is more difficult in that you can't allow families in as we might do on certain occasions, or you can't allow them to leave the hotel necessarily to go for a coffee or whatever it might be. So that is more complicated to manage. But given that we've got 3 matches and the training that surrounds that, there isn't a huge amount of time for downtime anyway. And I think with the facilities we've got, we're able to manage that as best we can.
Thanks, Rob. Got a couple of minutes remaining, so we'll finish with a question again from Rob Dorset from Sky Sports News.
Gareth, I just wanted to ask you specifically about Jadon Sancho. Carrie talked about transfer deadline day and the possibilities of players being involved. I mean, we know that he's got a huge club that have made some huge bids for him that haven't come to fruition yet. It could be a very high-profile situation for him on Monday. Will you have to, irrespective of what happens, the outcome of that, assess his state of mind? He's still only a 20-year-old lad, we tend to forget sometimes, and this is a big deal for him and his future. Will you have to assess his state of mind before you decide what sort of level of involvement he can have?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what is or isn't going on currently. I know there's been speculation all summer, and I spoke to him about that last time round, and I just commented to him that he'd dealt with it brilliantly. I know Dortmund had been really pleased with his application in training and to the matches. So, yes, I'm guessing that given what I'm reading, there are things going on, but hard to know how entirely accurate all of that is. So we'll, as with all of the players, there could be other players in similar situations over the next few days. You can't disassociate the person from the performance, and whatever's going on in people's lives has a big effect. And I think that's something we've all got to be mindful of as coaches, as people that employ people in any workplace at the moment. There's a huge amount going on in people's lives. It's bound to affect how they turn up for work every day or work from home every day. So as a manager, you've got to be aware of all of that to try and get the best from people.